Hello, I'm your friend Dylan, and you can leave the shooting to me. Or rather, just leave me the shooting. Like, the shooting, the aesthetic, the art style. You can take the story. Hello, welcome back to Your Friend Who Likes Games. It's another podcast about playing video games. I'm your host, Dylan, and thank you for joining me today. Thank you for having me a part of your video game conversation. I played a couple games this week. I had continued to play and work my way through Pragmata. Have not beaten it yet, but I'm, got a decent amount of chunk of time into that one, about like 8 hours. So I feel like I'm approaching the end, or at least from what I've heard from other podcasts, like I am close, in that final area. So some spoilery talk about my experience with that thus far as I approach the finish line. And I picked up Vampire Crawlers. That game came out on my birthday, and super excited about. It's a really fast yes, and I'm excited to continue my thoughts and conversations about that. I know I previously talked about it in an episode about the demo, and we'll get into that more today. But first, a splashy trailer came out this week on Splatoon Raiders. That might be my first Splatoon game. I've never played a Splatoon game. I'm well aware of what they are. They've been kind of painted as like, man, I'm being punny, painted. Woo! They have been painted as kind of like a for a younger generation. Like, I think some kids younger than me, me at 35, some people, some kids that are younger than me that are not my peers might be into that game or into that franchise, and may have gotten into it as like understanding like what the Switch is. And I'm aware of it being like a multiplayer game that you kind of look to paint an area more than the other team. But this game, Splatoon Raiders, is exclusively a single-player focused game, and says so in the trailer. It looks to be, set in this really cool, like, pirate island-y setting, and you create your own character. They show off in the trailer, which is completely visual, by the way. And, well, there is some, like, text or like dialogue here and there, but there isn't like a voiceover saying exactly what you can expect from the game. It just kind of shows off like some visual information, I guess, and some gameplay. And it looks, for me, I like it aesthetically, and I think it's going to be a Switch 2 exclusive. And it kind of looks to be, what came to mind was like Nobody Saves the World, where you kind of like tinker with how you are making attacks against like big hordes of enemies in certain spaces. And, you can, set up like little paint turrets, or you can come up with this big swiping axe that like has a certain paint attack, or you can have these kind of stingrays float around you and paint the world underneath you. Curious of like, what that means, like what the paint necessarily means in this context of like Splatoon Raiders. Like, if it's not a multiplayer game, are you trying to like overrun areas? It didn't look like you were trying to. It looked like more so like the paint was the result of all of your attacks. And it looks to be kind of like an action adventure game that you're, going treasure hunting, looking for treasure, and needing to take out various levels of enemy in order to obtain it. That's as much information as I could gather from the trailer itself. Watched it about 3 times just to be like, did I miss something? I want to make sure I'm at least prepared to talk about it. But they didn't really say anything in particular. A lot of times you catch those trailers on social media, and if you're anything like me, keep your phone on silent. So I wasn't like listening to it. But it was cool to have interest in this franchise, because like it really has been passive for me. Just looks like a franchise that I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. Primarily Nintendo multiplayer game, not my thing. But a single player focused game, I think I'm not alone in that it might draw in some people that may have never given the franchise a try. and it looks like a style of game that I am definitely into. So yeah, looking forward to that in June, I think, like June 23rd. So, summertime, pirates, beachy vibes, done, sold. Like, I think I'm there already. Yeah, so that's it for now. And I think let's move on. Actually, no, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to take a sip of sparkling water, and then I'm going to come back and talk about vampire crawlers. I will see you in a couple. All right, vampire crawlers. This one was an easy yes. Like when I saw that the folks that made Vampire Survivors were coming out with another game, it was an instant like, yeah, I can't wait to see what that's about. And frankly, like I almost expected, I think, with the dungeon crawler nature of it for it to be a lot slower, and they somehow really keep that like mindless flowiness of a Vampire Survivors in regards to like decision making alive in this format. And hopefully, I can be specific enough to get into it. But basically, for those of you that are not aware, Vampire Crawlers is the kind of new dungeon crawler deck building roguelite that was developed by the folks that made Vampire Survivors. And you don't have to have played Vampire Survivors, I would say, to play this game, but it certainly helps because they're completely taking the iconography from Vampire Survivors and plugging it into this format where from Vampire Survivors, I'm familiar with what a lot of attacks do. And it's kind of been fun to see, like, out of curiosity, like what will happen when, I play a magic wand card, or what will happen when I play the bone card. Like knowing how it behaves in Vampire Survivors, cool to see what it does here. And it's slightly different because you have like these kind of rows of enemies that show up in front of you, and your goal is to either take them out before they can attack you, or hope to build up enough armor so that when they attack you, it won't hurt you or take your health down. And you're trying to survive 5 levels of some of our favorite locations from Vampire Survivors, like the Mad Forest or the Inlaid Library. And they have now a like step by step, I mean like forward, right, left, back, very 3D dungeon crawler style like iteration of what these places could look like. And it's nice. They're kind of like 3D chunky pixely spaces that still have the same sprites from Vampire Survivors. They're just like a little bit bigger and in your face. And I said before too, like the presentation of this game is really stunning. Like I like the kind of like gold trim that is around the cards. They feel like very physical in that way. As you are navigating your deck and you hover your mouse over or like click left and right to which one you want, like those cards that you're about to choose kind of float forward as if like you're looking at them from your hand, and then you play them forward, and then they have the effect. But yeah, it's so. Speaking of the demo, like the demo progress stays. So if you played the demo and you progressed and you had some unlocks, that just stays where it's at, and then you just continue and get more of the game. I said I played a decent amount of the demo, but I will say that I didn't get to a point with the demo that I found like an end. So like I don't know if the demo's still available. I would check on that, but the game I think was around $10. So if this is something that you're interested in Steam, or if you want to try it on Steam and don't like it, you can always return it if it's not for you. But it's very much for me, and it's kind of wild to talk about because like it feels so familiar even though it's not. It feels so easy to play, and like the decision making feels very like streamlined and simple, and maybe we can uncover why today. We'll try that out. But in regards to presentation, still like I mentioned, like the locations, like even the music still has the like original song of like the Mad Forest, where it's like it's an iteration of it. You could tell it's like slightly different, made for this game. It's not the exact same thing, but it's kind of nice to have, again, that familiar iconography to almost say like I'm not too lost here. I think all of that familiarity really helps drive home like the new idea of this like deck builder in which you're choosing cards to attack instead, and the pace being a little bit different. But it really makes sense. Like gameplay wise, you show up on this map and you see like you're in the 3D space, and you kind of click forward, or you can turn and go left and right, down and over, and you have like each of those commands like as a click of the mouse, or you can use your D-pad, or you can use your analog stick if you're playing on Steam Deck. It all plays great there. I think to rotate your character, you just hit the triggers, and like that's super intuitive. Like I didn't even have to look that up. I just tried it and it worked. But you know, you're moving throughout that 3D space, but you're also looking on the map, which is on the bottom of your screen, and it shows you all these little icons that show, you know, like a regular skull is like an encounter. So like an encounter with a group of enemies, and you look to get through that and move on. A question mark is usually some sort of like stand or cross or something to break open, and then ends up being something having to do with either health or obtaining a new card, or creating a sort of card synergy, which is really cool. And then you have little dots on the map too that don't show up there right away. So I will say, like, for a while, even playing the demo, I couldn't figure out how to find like the floor chicken, which is like your healing item. It's like a big rotisserie chicken on a plate. And I was like, wow, that's kind of lacking in this game. Like I haven't found any way to obtain health, but that changes when I think you obtain some sort of unlock. I don't remember how I did, or I just kind of turned it on when I think it's like a relic that you get that just becomes like a permanent upgrade in your roguelite adventure. And it makes so that, like, all of the areas that have, or like on the map, it shows you like where the health, or like the pillars, that's what I'm looking for. Those like flaming pillars are, or the candelabras in the inlaid library that you can break open, and are either coins or potentially a floor chicken to help you out. So you have that, and then you have like certain iconography too that implies like there's like the final boss of the dungeon, you know, like you can't get there right away. But you can get there pretty quickly, and if you're confident enough, you can just go right there, and as long as you beat that boss, you can move down to the next level of the dungeon, and you dig deeper, and then it's, you know, another layout. So yeah, that's like the basic setup, where you're just kind of moving around and then having encounters, and then you get your cards. So your cards are all of your attacks. So a lot of them, like I said, borrow the iconography from Vampire Survivors. Like, we have the whip, you have the magic wand, you have the fire wand, there are the knives, there are the lightning, there is the garlic, and they all kind of like do a similar thing, just like within the context of this game now. And starting characters are the same too, where you start as the dude with the whip, or you start as I think her name is Imelda, or Ismelda or something, that has the magic wand. And then you get the dude with the knives, and then Mortasio has been like a quick favorite for me in regards to like people that you get early for specific reasons I hope to get into if my train of thought keeps me there. But yeah, so like the whip is cool because like it will attack like everybody in that line, so it whips like all the way across. So it does a little bit of damage, but you could stack certain damages on there, and then, or you can like stack gems on your cards to make like a ×2, and or you can have combos in this game that make your attack more worthwhile. And so that is one way of attacking. And then Imelda with the kind of magic wand, it prioritizes the enemies that are about to attack you. I found that one to be a little less useful because like it keeps people in the row available to attack you. So like, yes, it can work, but you need to have a lot of armor in order to like make sure that you're balancing out like the attacks that are coming in. So not my biggest favorite, but like Mortasio is really great because, and here we are, we got there. He has the bone ability, and what it does is it kind of like ricochet it, like in Vampire Survivors, it gets sent out and then it kind of ricochets as like it hits enemies, and then you can, in Survivors, you can upgrade it to like ricochet more and more. And what I really liked about it here is like it does like bounce on each enemy, and not only that, but it like ricochets, and it can ricochet into the rows that are behind the enemies that are in the front row. So you're doing damage to like a lot of things at once. And the big thing I want to talk about too is like that you have to pay attention to in relationship to your cards is mana. So like you have certain like magic points per hand essentially that like you use as like a sort of to power your moves, and certain cards have certain numbers of mana that are required to like use them in order to attack. So sometimes you can't use the +4 armor card because it's 1 mana and you're like completely out, and you have to end your turn. But what I like about, and I had a run like this morning that really I just kind of like flexed this a little bit, was the 0 cards. Like a lot of the kind of standard attacks from a variety of the characters, like the initial like magic wand, the fire wand. No, fire wand I think is one mana. But the whip and the knives and the bone are all like 0. So a lot of times when you get an upgrade or you get a chest or you fill your meter of XP to level up, you get a choice of a card. And early on, I kept picking like the big splashy cards. Like there were some that like took 3 mana and then, or 2 mana, and it was like 20% more damage. And you're like, oh yeah, I want like bigger and better. But I came to find out like 0 mana cards can always be used. So like my strategy as of late has been like stacking up armor cards, because the armor cards seem to be very important in this game. Like I'll talk about that in a second, but like I've been stacking like armor cards and a lot of the 0 cards, and because those 0 cards you can always use, like you can attack like each time, as long as they show up in your deck. And if you have a lot of them, then there's more chances of them showing up. So that's been really nice. And then like I mentioned the gems, so I'm going to talk about armor and I'm going to talk about gems. So the armor cards, and the reason they're so important in this game is that like you get attacked like each round, right? So like you get like, I think 1 or 2 chances. I can't really keep track, but like I think it's like 2 hands essentially, and then they get a turn. And what I didn't realize at first, but then like as I kept like getting used to the game and noticed the kind of menu in the screen, or the HUD, if you will, like above the row of enemies, it shows you how much armor like they have for you to get through, and then it shows like, so like there's like a blue shield icon that says like that's how much armor they have, and then there is a sword that says like how much they're going to attack you. So essentially it's a math game where like you have, if they have 7 and you have 5 armor, that means you're going to take 2 damage. So stacking up like armor cards per round, or at least per hand, is useful, because then it keeps your health at bay and you're not getting like destroyed. Now there are other ways, I'm sure, to do that. Like there's a lot of like self-healing stuff you can obtain. There is like cards that you can put into play that heal you after each round, so you can kind of like rely on that back and forth. But like I personally, like the armor has, I think, been necessary, at least for me, starting the game. And I know like I'm sure you can get super deep into it, and this is just the first week of me playing it, so yeah, that's where I'm at there. And then I said I was going to talk about something else, and my brain already went, oh, the gems. Okay, so this is important too. So Armor cards are important, and then gems are super important because like you get these gems that you can attach to each card that you have, and some cards have 2 gem slots. I've noticed some cards have just 1, and the gems will have an additional effect when you play the card, which can be really cool, and it keeps the just the basic cards, or like the playing of the cards, like not so stagnant. Like, so another like iconography that they've pulled from Survivors to put into this game is the duplicator. So like in Survivors, the duplicator is like if your axe threw out like 3 axes, or that's where you're at, then it would throw out 6 because it duplicated like your attack. So you can attach that to, any of the cards, and well, smartly attach them to any of the cards. It's interesting now that you have duplicator and spinach. I wonder if like that would mean like 40% damage. I'd have to try that. But regardless, like I've been putting them on 0 cards because then I can always put them into play. So for instance, like a duplicator, I can put on the whip, and instead of doing like 1 whip across the row, it'll do 2, and then so that's double damage. Another gem that comes to mind is a like copy ability. So like anytime you use a particular card, it will copy that card so you have it again in that hand. So like I liked putting those on 0 mana cards because then it didn't depend on mana to like use them again. Like I had done that on like my bigger cards, like a Hellfire one that is like 3 mana. So like I would use Hellfire and be like, sweet, it's going to copy itself. And it would, but like it didn't matter if I didn't have the mana to like use it again. So I've been putting the copy ability on the 0 cards so I could just stack like bone attacks or knife attacks or whip attacks, because they come right back into your hand. And that feels really good to like just keep doing damage and like wiping out an entire encounter pretty quickly. So it's fun to like, through the gems and the way that you use the cards, like be able to strategize in that way. And like I said, like this past the very like successful run I had on like the 3rd difficulty of the Mad Forest, which I haven't mentioned yet. There's like tiers of difficulty for each of the locations. So like it's like Mad Forest, Insane Forest, and something else. Like, but the 3rd iteration of that was like one of the harder difficulties, and was able to get through that one by stacking a bunch of armor cards to make sure that like they could never touch me, and then just having a bunch of like 0 mana cards, and then I'm thinking of like my stacking systems now. It's cool too. Like another iconography brought from Survivors was the Bracer, and I can't remember what Bracer did in Survivors, but it's that like basically like the Infinity Gauntlet. And in this game, what it does is it allows you to have more cards in your hand. So having multiple cards, or more cards in your hand, and then having multiple cards that had the copy ability, I kept just like having double attacks essentially. And while it was a lot of little damage, it was multiplied over and over again to make like a big splash on the opposing enemy waves. And that really worked out. So that is a like completely unique instance, and I'm sure that this game, through its systems, is going to have like a lot of those instances where like maybe I doubled down in like Santa Water. Now Santa Water is a tough card because it is a 3 mana, but like there are also cards that add 4 mana, so it's like, do I create like this scenario where I can keep laying down Santa Water on the first row and it just burns anything that comes my way to where they can't even attack? So like that kind of stuff, the game makes you feel really smart in that way, in order to or like the way that it gets you to figure those things out and kind of like I know it's kind of like put in front of you, but like you get to choose essentially like what your combinations are and like what cards you use. And I've definitely had a couple runs that like it just didn't work out. Like I like I mentioned, like doubled down on like the high mana cards and then didn't get any armor, thinking I would just do more damage, and that didn't really work out. And again, I think armor's important. But speaking of armor and strategy, there's also like a kind of permanent perk tent that you could visit and choose like one card to take with you, and not a playable card, but like almost like a tarot card that says like this is your perk as you do this run. And one that I found to be incredibly useful is a card that allows you to stack armor in between each they call them rounds, I think. So like the way armor works without this card is you have like your turn, their turn, right? And in your turn, you stack up as much armor as you can with the cards you have, and then they attack you. So, if I had 14 armor and they only do 7 damage, then I go back to 7 armor, and then like it resets back to 1 after their turn. Now, with this tarot card, it allows you to like, if in that particular instance where again I had 14, they attack 7, and then I have 7 left, it will let me keep that 7, and then you can just like stack armor. And there were points where I had like 45 armor, and then you're essentially untouchable by anything as long as you have the number of armor bigger than the attack that's coming your way. So that really worked out. There are 0 mana armor cards, which are really nice to like throw on and be able to get like 2 armor. But then there's like one that costs 1 mana that gives you 4 armor. So like it's really well balanced in that way. And I haven't mentioned you get like 3 mana per round. And then unless you have cards that give you more of it. So yeah, like I thought it would be this game. I thought it would be like more brainy and like hurt more in that way. And I am actually really surprised at like how quick and flowy this game is, and kind of pressure free, and like you still feel like really badass, and in a similar way to Vampire Survivors as you take out hordes of enemies. And I think that means like the difficulty is just challenging enough. I haven't found any particular area that has been like really hard yet. But curious of how kind of deep and mathy it might get as I continue to move forward. That I've put about maybe 4 hours into it so far, and then like a few hours of the demo. So like for whatever that's worth. And I've gotten to a place where I feel really satisfied with like those first few runs, especially like the bigger ones on the more difficult places. I'm curious of like when I'll start unlocking more locations, and like what will that look like? Like will the dungeons like evolve, or is there going to be like status effects that you have to deal with? Like what, I'm sure it's going to go a lot of places, and I'm going to continue hopefully to talk about it here. Yeah. I want to shout out to, and like, I've expressed on this show recently that I've been looking for games that I could play one-handed. And yeah, this works. It is simply just a mouse you can use to play and click through this game, and it still feels really good to play. Easy to navigate the space as you're clicking, one area at a time, and it kind of has that old school PC approach to it in that way. But like I still think it's great. Like I said, a very easy yes, and for a new dad or anyone that is super busy, you can pause mid-run and it will autosave. I really enjoyed that. I've even had where I paused mid-run and like exited. Like if you pause and like exit to the main menu, you don't forfeit your run, which is really nice. Like I like that I can be like 4 floors in and be like, I gotta go do something or whatever, and then I come back or boot it up on my Steam Deck, save through like Save Cloud, and I'm on the fourth floor again. Now, I don't know if there seems to be like a penalty for that though, like or health penalty, because every time I've like booted it back up, I watch like my health drain a little bit. So it might just be like that's what you get for like not seeing it through, or like I don't know, or maybe it's just like putting your health where it was and there's like a little animation for that, but it makes you feel like you just lost health as you re-enter the game and you're like, hey. But regardless, I'm very thankful that like being able to pause it and come back to it, and not have to, like Vampire Survivors, play through an entire half an hour, essentially. Not that like you can't suspend a game, nowadays it's not like a giant problem, but it's just nice when like the game itself accommodates that. The other thing too, I think I want to mention here, and it may be because the folks that made this game are well aware of like the structure that they presented in Vampire Survivors, like, and I think a lot of that sort of the big criticism that I think even I felt, but I still enjoyed, but like a lot of people I've heard say with like Vampire Survivors is it's just kind of on rails, like in regards to progression. Like you can't really be good at it. It's been like a little Steven at Into the Aether said that like it could be a little too like passive, right? Like where you're kind of like moving around automatically and shooting, or not automatically, you're just moving around and then like it's shooting and attacking automatically and you're just hoping to make the right choices. But like even then it wants you to play a long time before you like really get places. I have felt with Vampire Crawlers that that's streamlined a little bit. Like they're not gatekeeping as much, or want you to grind. I found that I've been getting like some pretty nice upgrades, or like finishing a run well gets you a lot of cool new stuff that you could then take out and play with, or new cards to use, or new crawlers to use like pretty quickly, or at least like it feels, I mean, yeah, it has to be quicker because I'm only like 4 hours in and I feel like I'm unlocking stuff where I remember in Vampire Survivors, it felt like I had to play at least 30 hours to get anywhere. I think that's because it was a new game then. And I think if anyone hadn't played or hasn't played Vampire Survivors and were to jump into Vampire Survivors now, I think it would let you move a little faster than it did then. But this one in particular, like I said, I just feel like it's a little more rewarding quicker, and it makes you motivated to do well. It's like not just like an automatic experience, but like it does feel like I'm getting rewarded for doing, like having a good run, essentially. So yeah, like I think in conclusion, like where I'm at now, it's fun to find like certain kind of strategies, or like this is how I'm playing the game now, and like I'm saying this now knowing I'm sure that will eventually become outdated and there will be a new way to like look at it, and that will be in relationship to like the difficulty of the game at the time, like moving forward. So I'm excited to see, like I am excited to see how deep this game goes, and hopefully I'll circle back to it and talk about it again with some later playthroughs, and like kind of deeper into the game. But one thing I have found, at least right now, that seems to be working, like I talked about the kind of copy abilities, or adding gems to like 0 cards, knowing that like you can use them always. So then you get like, you're more likely to obtain that effect knowing you don't have to use mana to like use the card. So I've also done like, there's this gem that is called like the leader, and it has like a little crown, and you can like stamp it to one of your cards, and if the card is in your hand, attacks for other cards deal more damage, and it'll kind of highlight like how much more. It'll kind of emphasize like this is going to do like 400 damage, and it normally does like 180, or whatever. So I've been trying to put, again, another reason to put on like maybe a 0 card is if that, so knowing that that card needs to be in your deck, it shouldn't be like a card that you use right away. right? So like if you use the leader card right away, then you lose that effect of having your attacks like more powerful. So it's like those little snippets that again make you feel really smart and kind of, Brendan Bigley's been saying how from Wavelengths has said like this game demands your attention a little bit more than Survivors does, and that's a way that it does, where you're like I need to make sure that like I am using that card last so that I get the effects that gem has with the other cards. So my other cards like double attack essentially, or even more, if I wait to use that card last. And what is going to make me use that card last is probably have it be a 0 card that doesn't cost any mana. Because more than likely, if a card costs mana, you're trying to use it first, if it's necessary. And a lot of times, it's funny. I've been avoiding them, at least for now. And I say that I just have a feeling that something's going to be like, yeah, those little attacks aren't going to cut it when I move to the second difficulty of the inlaid library or whatever, which I don't think I've gotten to yet. But I want to try. But yeah, Vampire Crawlers, wildly familiar, automatic in a way that like again makes you feel smart and like surprisingly smooth, and just like making choices like that's just, I think, a test to the game design. Like I feel really good playing it being like bam bam bam, click click click. Like it's really that fast when it comes to like choosing your cards. At least for me, I don't know, like I think this game is really clicking for me, pun intended, but I kind of knew it would, just because I love the first game and have played hundreds of hours of Vampire Survivors. But it's really, it's like, it is that and it's not that at the same time. Like it is very much like the kind of like power up structure and intention is the same, but like the gameplay is not the same. It's not running around trying to hide from. It is like approaching one step at a time encounters and then doing a little math back and forth, turn-based style to make sure that you survive and crawl to the bottom of the dungeon. Yeah. So more on that hopefully later. And yeah, good so far. So when I come back, I'm going to talk about my continued time with Pragmata. See you in a little bit. Okay, Pragmata. And last episode was like hot on this game. Like had heard about it 2 days before I started playing it, and then brought it to the pod because like the game rules. Like I really, really, really like the gameplay. And I hinted at this at the beginning, the kind of dadly voice that Hugh has, the main character's like, leave the shooting to me. And like I feel like I am interpreting this story of Pragmata in a very different way than maybe a lot of the Instagram headlines I see. Now, I'm not pointing at any particular people or players, and I'm curious, like, if you've played this game, how you feel about it. But I find it really interesting that a lot of, like, Instagram headlines are like, yeah, like, Pragmata's making gamers want to become dads, or, like, what a sweet sentiment. Like, look at how cute the intro screen is with, like, Hugh sitting next to Diana with this sky in the background. And my interpretation, like the interpretation of that for me sounds like how sweet of this like fatherly companionship you are finding in this game, and like how cute it is that Hugh just wants to be a good person and like show Diana like what it's like to, or what Earth is like, and gonna show her things that she may have never gotten to experience before because she's just a girl robot, and like he gets to be the dad in that way. And like there's like this, it seems like the perception is like this, there's like sentimentality to that, where it's like cute and kind of adorable and like positive. And for me, it's not that. Like, it feels very sad. Like, and I said this in the last episode too, and I'm going to kind of reiterate here that, like, Hugh is in a place where he had, like, his human, presumably human companions come with him to Mars and check out this, like, AI base, and they all get wiped out, or at least, like, they are assumed dead and gone. So Hugh is alone with in this place that is full of AI bots. In addition to the fact that he finds, sure, a companion, but also an AI bot, right? Like, Diana is a bot. And so, like, if she were human, I think this story would be a whole lot different. But the fact that she is, like, a robot, and I know I'm being, like, repetitive here, it to me, it makes it feel, like, really lonely. And some of you already know, as you go about the world, you find these collectibles that you can bring back to your base, and they, in these, like, very, like, designated spots around your circular base that have this projected screen of a pretty sky, you can place different things, like, from Earth that a girl might like, right? Like a tree swing, or a set of balloons, or a slide, or cartoons on the TV. And the fact that they are, like, all simulated, and the fact that Diana is a robot, to me, it just makes it so sad. Like, it makes it, like, empty in regards to, like, these are remnants of, like, the idea of Earth. And we're so far away from Earth. Like, we know we're on the moon. We know we're nowhere near, like, any of these actual things. And him kind of being like, yeah, this is a butterfly. And, like, the kind of, like, I wrote down, this is like a mansplaining simulator sometimes. Like, I don't connect with that in the way that's like, oh, wow, like, look at that genuine connection he has with that little girl. No, like, that little girl is, like, a programmed robot made by a doctor for a said reason. Like, you kind of start to uncover that in the story, and it's like I can't buy into the, like, genuine connection that I think a lot of this game is being, like, pitched with. And that being said, like, knowing where this art director, or the director of this game, came from, being Nier Automata, Metal Gear games, like, I'm not 100% sold that, like, that the whole, like, preciousness of their relationship is, like, the intention. Like, I'm wondering if, like, not that I'm right, like, I guess that's where I'm going with this, but, like, you know, this is merely opinion, but I'm wondering if, like, the intention is, like, let's put the idea of Earth, let's make this man that came to the moon and is, like, reminiscing about his house on the ocean or whatever, like, it's like, let's illustrate the lack of that. Let's be in a place where, like, again, like, other than the crew members, like, I haven't seen any other human at all in this game. So, again, to me, that feels, like, really lonely. It feels really empty. And the kind of, like, digital simulation, or, like, the 3D printing of all of these, like, earthly things so that Diana could, like, pretend to be a girl, again, it just feels empty to me. And, like, I feel pretty passionate about that, like, clearly. That all being said, like, you know, I wonder if that's the point. I just feel like the perception of it is not, like, for me, is different than what I've been seeing online. All that to be said, I think this game's gameplay is stellar, and I continue to, like, want more of it. I love, like, fighting these various robots that behave in different ways. I love using the hacking mechanic to, you know, get to them, and I love these kind of, like, close quarters situations that the game puts you in, to where like there's really no escape, and you have to be smart about like how you use space and time. So, you know, you get eventually a sort of like decoy hue that you can like plop on the ground, and the robots will attack that. And you know, you can like obtain some space that way. You can kind of move to a different spot, and then like allow yourself to regroup or hack. There is one hacking ability that, or I forget what they're called. There's like a hacking node, I think is what they're called, and they kind of show up in your hacking grid, where you can make the other AI bots confused and like attack the other ones, which is really helpful for especially some of the bigger bots that when they attack you, it hurts. So getting them to attack something else and like fight for you is kind of nice. And it's just really fun in that way. I think like the game is really stellar in that way. And I think the kind of like over tutorialization of Diana, it like can get old. Her quips to me feel really annoying. But and that's like the story I think is kind of lackluster. Like it's funny, there's like it's been mentioned that there is like all of these little like nuggets that you can find, like little data logs, whether it be an email that somebody sent, or you find some data pad that says something like that stuff just doesn't feel very important to me, like at least like with how fun the rest of the game is. And I'm kind of thankful that it can be passive. So I'll say that, like, I'm thankful that like I don't have to engage with all of that stuff. Cause for me, it's just about like the shooting. And it's so funny. Like this game too has been kind of pitched as like a late 2000s or early 2010s, like action third person shooter game. And I'm like, I'm frankly, I'm behaving like someone that played a game in that time that was like, yeah, I don't need a story. Get that story out of the way. I just want to shoot stuff. But like, if the story's good, I'll hook onto it, of course. And like, I don't find this one to be particularly like gripping. Like I don't really care what like Pragmata is. But I just want to like shoot robots that look cool and hack my way through that and find that, you know, like that part is so much stronger than anything else in it, in my opinion, that I just want to keep doing that. So, you know, it, not to say that the art style doesn't work, not to say that like it can't land for someone. And I know I'm like very strongly opinionated about this. I just find it kind of at high contrast between like how much I love playing this game. Like this is one of my favorite games I've played this year. It actually got me thinking about kind of my like GOTY list and starting one, because like I was like, yeah, this one will be on it because I just like playing it. But yeah, you know, this, like I said, the first episode I talked about this, like this could be like a 70-hour game with a bunch of cruft and extra crap that you have to like puzzle solve and do, and that could be a headache. And you know, it's actually pretty okay like letting the story be passive. It's pretty okay letting extra puzzly stuff be passive, but really just like moment by moment, you're just like, let's enter the new space and there's going to be robots and I will take them out. And that feels really good. So yeah, I mean, like all that being said, I'm curious of what the game actually has to say in regards to story. I know I'm not quite digging into it, but we'll see. And then like some other semi-spoilery stuff here, you know, as if you not saying kind of saying specifics, not saying specifics. I really don't know how to navigate that. I wish I was a little bit better at that, I will say. But if you've listened to the show before, you know where, you know, if you would like to skip this part, you can. If you like to play it first, I certainly encourage that. But this will be kind of like some specific kind of things that I've seen and want to reflect on. So, boom, moving forward. There's a cleverness like to a level that I found that like I actually did read about this. Like there's like the use of a bot recycler, and there's like all these certain bots lined up, and they're done being used, and you you activate this bot recycler. And it shows you how to do it, but then like if you're clever, you can continue to use it throughout the level and like wipe out enemies super quickly. And I was not patient enough to do that, and I missed out on one particular opportunity, but I thought that was pretty cool. I love that there's something with the kind of cutscenes that I thought was really fun in regards to like who Diana is. There she like will decode something really quick or like read something really quick, and she like says code like or words like really really fast. It feels like sped up. It's like like I thought that was kind of charming and fun. So like there's a point for the story. But I don't need to get back into like how I think Hugh is naive and like lonely. Like I think I explained pretty well that like it's kind of, it just seems like he's got some sad dad lonely mentality. And here's the other thing. I don't blame him. All right, I'm getting back into it. I don't blame him. I don't blame Hugh for like finding companionship here, like at all. Like I think it makes sense that the thing, whatever it was, it could have been an alien, it could have been a dog, it could have been, it's a bot, it's a girl bot that helped him out. Like he's going to find companionship in that, and then get to the end of like what's going on here at this station. So of course he would seek companionship here, but it's again, just in comparison to perception. Another like cool level thing that I found, and I've been kind of telling people that have asked me about like this game in particular, like that I find myself like seeking more combat, which is cool in a game that has combat in general. Like a lot of times, I think about how intimidating like an Elden Ring can be for me, where like I'm avoiding combat sometimes. I'm not like going toward it and taking it on. But in this game, like there is a section in, forget what it's called. It's like the Terra. There's like kind of like a mid game kind of level that is like interior jungle dome thing, and there's like this spot called the red zone, and it gives you a warning beforehand that says like this is going to be difficult. Like there's like increased difficulty in this area. Are you sure you want to go? And at first I was like, and like normally that is a big red flag for me of like, no, I don't need to like take on the extra thing. But because I enjoy playing this game so much, I was like, yeah, let's do that. Because a lot of times this game, Pragmata, will have, kind of these slow approaching, scary robots walking your way and looking to attack you. Let's do more of it. And that was like probably, and then it continues to ramp up as the game goes on. But up until that point, the red zone was like the most engaging area that I had been in, where like it really did feel like every second and decision counted, but I was still capable. Like it felt really cool to like desperately throw a like stasis net, which is the kind of like stop the enemies in their tracks if they are in the bubble, like calm a set of like crowd control a little set of enemies, and then take out the 2 drones that keep firing missiles at me, and then hack that thing to be confused and shoot somebody else, and like use this gun because of whatever. Like it was fun to like make those like very fast essential decisions in order to be successful in that zone. Not only that, but like it has like these circular lasers that are like spinning, and you have to like dodge those too, or stay away from them, or like stay off the ground level. And I would welcome more of that. And I had heard from Girl Mode podcast that this game does have like a new game plus. So I'm curious of like what that entails. Like if, you go through the game again, is it like more challenging? Is it going to be more like that? And if so, like replayability might be a thing. I'm not one that likes to play a lot of games over, but like I've told you, really enjoyed I have really enjoyed playing this game. And if it's New Game Plus, that probably implies that like all of the upgrades that you have up until that point, you get to take with you and enter scenarios again, but like with all your stuff. But it's funny. I noted that like the bare bones of this is so good that I don't really care much about upgrades, but like eventually it becomes the game kind of like makes you need them. You'll notice that like you'll take hits from things and your suit will go way down, or you'll notice that you need to move more and upgrade your boosters to where like you could boost like three or four times in a row instead of just like once. So I hadn't done that for a while, and then I think took on a boss and then kind of went back to the hub area and realized I hadn't spent a lot of the currency. So I went for, all of those upgrades to kind of better myself. And it did feel like a lot better. It felt, again, like the game, I'm telling you that the game makes it essential at some point. Ooh, this was a fun like kind of strategy that if you've played, you probably figured out on your own. But like, I didn't realize for a bit that like there's a gun called the Charge Piercer that you have to like, you don't have to, like, you can just shoot it and it will cause some damage. But like if you hold it down and charge it, it will have a lot more of a lot more damage if you shoot like a charged shot. So I found it to be kind of difficult to like hack and then open up the enemies like weak spots and then have to like try to charge and then shoot and do that in time. But you can technically, because you're aiming with the left trigger and you're holding down the shot but like the right trigger for shoot, you can hold both of those down and then hack using the like X, Y, A, B buttons. So you can charge it while you're hacking, and then when it opens up, you can let go. That felt real cool. Like to be able to execute that like was really like creative and fun, and definitely something that they like hint at and like show you that they don't show you directly that you can do that, but like you can do that. Like they create the scenario in which you can do that and feel pretty cool about it. So yeah, that's like some specific stuff with the game. Like I really just enjoy the gameplay. Like I think the generous amounts of weapons that they continue to give you, like even later in the game, or even the upgrade of like your regular pistol gets upgraded into something else that is really helpful and necessary. It just keeps feeling cool, and like that part of it is really exciting. Letting it be passive is fine and funny, like for me, and just like it's I wish it had a little bit more of an impact, but I'm glad it doesn't get in the way. I will say that. And the last thing I'll say about this kind of like inherent story that keeps happening, like there keeps there's this beat that like Diana wants to come to Earth with Hugh, and he's like, yeah, I'll take you there, again, fatherly, and like it's weird to me that like I guess it's really hoping that we apply like our understanding of like what Earth is to that situation, because in the context of this game, Earth doesn't seem to really matter. Just seems like the place we came from and the place that Diana doesn't really know yet. The place that Hugh references as being like simple and beautiful and all this stuff. Like it just seems kind of generic, and it's I don't know. And I feel like I spent more time like poo-pooing like the story today. I think it's just because I think it's so wild how like it's just not. I'm here talking about it and I'm like it's not clicking with me, but like and simply put, the gameplay is amazing, and like I can't wait to like finish this game, and the levels and like the various boss fights are super cool. I haven't really mentioned that yet, but like the boss fights are cool, like epically big, and they're gigantic, which is kind of comical because like you look at their size and you're just like Hugh in this astronaut suit, like these things should destroy you, but like they don't. And the settings of each of these boss fights and the set pieces that they provide have been pretty impressive. Like I like the look of them, and also the simplicity of them, the achievability of them. I don't think this game is particularly difficult, and that's definitely good for me. But yeah, maybe I'll have eventually a kind of like wrap this up and see what happens with the conclusion of this game, and see if maybe my mind will be changed. Maybe something cool will happen in the story that I really didn't expect, and I go, oh, that all makes sense now. But just in regards to the kind of perception of the game, like I said, and the kind of perception I have of it, like it just feels kind of different. But I still highly recommend this game to anyone that likes third-person shooters, anyone that is looking for like kind of a really good feeling arcadey shooter experience. It's sweet, and like I said before, the art style is just really stunning, and kind of the structure is really simple, and the idea that this game is like 10-ish hours is, I think, really approachable. So all that is really working, regardless of whether or not the story is. I think that's enough ranting about that. Thanks for joining me today on this episode of Your Friend Who Likes Games. If you like what you're hearing, tell a friend who likes games. I am thankful to be a part of your video game consumption or video game idea consumption. Just happy to be a part of the conversation. I know there's a lot of great video game podcasts out there. If you need recommendations, let me know. I've plenty that I like to listen to. And just happy to stay connected in that way. If you want to stay connected with me individually, you can reach out at Your Friend Who Likes Games on Instagram. You can find me on Blue Sky. Those are the places that I am most active on social media. If you want to chat about games or have opinions on Pragmata's story, you can find me there. But that's going to do it for this episode today. And we'll see you next week with whatever games I choose to play then. And thanks for listening. Take care. And don't be a sad dad. Bye.